My wife's male best friend and I were both kidnapped by a group of kidnappers. They demanded $40 million to release one of us, but she used the money I had worked hard to earn to save her male best friend instead. In my final moments, covered in blood, I begged her to look at me, but April chose to help her male best friend leave without looking back, leaving me to be brutally killed by the kidnappers. April said that I was the one who obstructed her from running to her true love. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn on the day I married April. Chapter 1. Noah. What should we do? The Moo family still wants us to pay $188,000 as a betrothal gift to your uncle before April can get in the car to marry you. The speaker was my best man and close friend, Santiago. His familiar voice pulled me back from the excruciating pain of having my limbs severed. I glanced at the bouquet in my hand, incredulous as I took in the festive wedding decorations around me. I couldn't help but smile. I never expected to be reborn on the day I was marrying April. At this moment, I should have already sent $800,000 to the Moo family, but on the day of the wedding, when I came to pick up the bride, the Moo family unexpectedly demanded an extra $180,000 in dowry. Noah, how can you still be smiling at a time like this? Asking for an extra $180,000. The Moo family really is greedy. I don't understand what's so great about April that has you so infatuated. Santiago couldn't help but complain, his words tinged with disappointment. Noah, have you thought this through? It's just $180,000. Hurry and transfer the money to my brother, or I won't marry you. April, dressed in a white wedding gown, sat impatiently on the bed, but my gaze was drawn to her male best friend, Angelo, who was dressed in a suit. Yeah, Noah, it's just $180,000. If you really love April, what's there to hesitate about? Angelo's eyes were filled with mockery and provocation. Exactly, Noah. It seems you're not truly sincere. I looked at April, her face twisted with anger, and the images of the day I was kidnapped flooded my mind. April had brought a suitcase full of money, but she chose to save not her husband, but her male best friend. My heart was filled with disbelief and utter heartbreak. I was overwhelmed by feelings of betrayal and pain that cut through me like a knife. I asked April why. But April, with a pained expression, helped Angelo up and looked at me with reproach. She said that Angelo had been weak since childhood and wouldn't last long in this situation, while I was strong enough to endure. After saying that, April hurriedly took Angelo and left without looking back at me. After years of marriage to April, I discovered her close relationship with Angelo only after hiring a private investigator. They had grown up as childhood friends. It turned out that because Angelo was a premature baby from a poor family, they had never been together. April had once drunkenly confessed to me that the reason she married me was simply that I had money. After marrying me, she intended to use my money to pay for Angelo's medical treatment. But even knowing all this in my past life, I still loved April hopelessly. I always thought that as long as I treated her sincerely, she would eventually notice my good qualities. I wasn't greedy. I gave everything. I just wanted a small place in April's heart, even if it was just a little. April said she loved the brilliance of fireworks, so I spent a fortune to light up the city, all to make her smile. But she remained gloomy. Just when I was confused, I saw Angelo had bought her a simple sparkler, and it made her smile radiantly. At that moment, I realized that no matter how hard I tried, April loved Angelo. So even a worthless sparkler from him was something she cherished. April didn't love me, so no matter how much I spent to please her, it was just a case of me throwing my warmth at someone cold. When we were both kidnapped, and April chose to save Angelo without hesitation, it shattered all my hopes for her love. Even though I had been reborn, I still couldn't forget the feeling of having my limbs severed and my head cut off by the kidnappers. April's words hung in the air. The new house was silent. The Moo family looked smug, as if they were sure I would compromise. In front of so many people, I slowly lit a cigarette. April frowned, wanting to scold me. She had always disliked the smell of smoke, but I spoke before she could, my hand holding the cigarette nonchalantly. Since you think I'm not sincere, it's simple. You can go find the man you think is sincere. I won't marry. I called my brothers and turned to leave. The Moo family turned pale, clearly not expecting that I would actually choose not to marry over that extra $180,000. Noah, if you dare to leave, don't regret it. April's expression remained arrogant, likely still waiting for me to bow my head and placate her like before. Chapter 2. But she didn't know that the Noah who loved her dearly was already dead. I turned around. I could clearly see April and the Moo family sighing in relief, thinking I would back down. April softened her tone. It's fine, Noah. For you, that $180,000 is just a small matter. Why waste so much time? I coldly smiled and threw the bouquet in her face. April, flustered, shouted, Noah, what are you doing? I sneered. April, you're right. $180,000 is nothing for me. But you, April, are not worth that much to me anymore. Remember to prepare my dowry refund. With that, I turned and walked away. Even when I heard April crying, I didn't look back. After getting in the car, I called my parents to tell them the wedding was off. Santiago looked astonished. Noah, wow, you really stood your ground today. But are you really not going to marry April? I leaned back on the couch, my heart feeling surprisingly clear. Having been reborn, I finally realized there were many things and people in this world more worthy of my attention than April. It was truly unnecessary to waste my time on a woman like her. Not marrying her. Just think of it as a friend who got sick before. Now I'm better. Back at home, I called a cleaner to throw away all the wedding photos of April and me, as well as her belongings, into the trash. During the insurance period, I directly hired a professional lawyer to demand the Mu family return the $800,000 dowry. In this new life, I would no longer be the fool caught between April and Angelo. When the Mu family heard I wanted my $800,000 back, they panicked. They didn't want to return the money and certainly didn't want to lose their cash cow. So, the Mu family began to persuade April to apologize to me. April came to the villa where I lived, but before she could even enter the community, the security guard stopped her. What's the matter? I'm an owner here. If you stop me, I'll make sure you lose your job. Angelo stood beside her, acting as her protector. Since I had already warned the security guard, no matter how arrogant April acted, he insisted he couldn't verify her ownership and wouldn't let her in. April called me in distress, her tone awkward. She thought I would still defend her like before. Noah, I'm at the gate of your community, but the guard says I can't go in because I'm not the owner. I answered the call, coldly saying, you're not an owner here. Noah, don't go too far. Do you think threatening me with money will make me back down? If you keep this up, Noah, I really won't marry you. April shouted angrily. I couldn't help but laugh. Even now, she still thought I wanted to marry her. Stop with the nonsense. Just give me back the $800,000 dowry, and from now on, let's go our separate ways. At the mention of the $800,000, April's confidence weakened instantly. Angelo couldn't take it anymore. Noah, how can you do this? It's just $800,000. How can that measure your love for April? I chuckled lightly but couldn't help but notice the intimate photo of April and Angelo on my desk, feeling a wave of sarcasm. I never expected that April and Angelo had gotten together so early. Remembering the investigation material my friend sent me, I realized they even spent the night together the day before our wedding. April had even written on her private Weibo account that she just wanted to indulge for one night, and after this night, she would bury her love deep inside. Looking at her private account, filled with sweet memories with Angelo, she portrayed me as the villain who ruined their fated love. In fact, in my previous life, April had indeed complained that if it weren't for my existence, she and Angelo would have been together openly long ago. Since I had been reborn, I naturally chose to fulfill her wish this time. I held the phone, my eyes full of mockery. It doesn't measure love. Since you and April are so close, why don't you pay back the $800,000 for her? At the mention of the money, Angelo turned pale, and April's heart ached. Noah, you know Angelo's health condition. Why do you have to use money to humiliate him like this? Let me tell you, you just had good luck and were born into a good family. If Angelo had such a good background, he'd definitely be 100 times better than you. If we're not getting married, then so be it. Let me tell you, even if you, Noah, beg me to marry you after today, I won't do it. April couldn't stand seeing Angelo being humiliated and pulled him away. I stood by the window, coldly watching April and Angelo's figures disappear. April was taking the matter too lightly by not marrying me. Since the Mu family refused to return the $800,000 dowry, I decided to call the police. The police came and took the Mu family and April away. When I saw April again at the police station, her eyes were filled with hurt. Noah, are you really going to be so heartless? Why? Chapter 3. I couldn't help but laugh at April's ridiculous attempt to play the victim. April's mother had a fierce expression, like a shrew, trying to claw at me, but my people held her back, making her unable to move. Since I was the one who first suggested breaking off the engagement, her family not only refused to return the $800,000 but also wanted me to pay $1 million as compensation for April's alleged reputation damage. April's eyes turned red, filled with sorrow. Noah, don't be mad at me. Okay, I can give up the extra tens of thousands. Just please. Before I could respond, April's brother angrily interjected. All right, Noah, you stingy guy, shouldn't you know when to back off? If I had known you were this stingy, I might as well have let Angelo be my brother-in-law. Mario, what nonsense are you talking? I've told you countless times, my relationship with Angelo is purely platonic. April scolded her brother sharply, but it only exposed her guilt. A purely platonic relationship. In my previous life, I had heard those words so many times that my ears nearly grew calluses. I threw the photos and videos of April and Angelo in bed in front of the police and the Mu family. April, open your eyes and see clearly. Is this what you call a pure friendship with Angelo? Can a friendship involve taking off clothes and sharing a bed? Seeing those photos, April's face turned pale. This can't be. How do you have these photos? Noah. Did you hire someone to investigate me? Noah. How could you do this? Didn't you say you would always trust me? April made it sound like I was the unfaithful one. I smirked coldly. The reason I had those photos was largely thanks to Angelo. In my previous life, when my relationship with April was at its worst, Angelo sent me those videos and photos. I learned that he had a habit of filming in bed. In this life, I simply hired someone to copy the files from his phone and easily obtained this evidence. Trust. April, do you even deserve that? Ask yourself if I haven't treated you well enough. The day before our wedding, you went to a hotel with Angelo. What kind of reputation can a woman like you have? My eyes were filled with disgust for April. The Mu family couldn't stay calm upon seeing those videos either. Mu father slapped April hard across the face. You fool. What's so great about that sickly Angelo? How could you still be with him? As the truth came out, April cried, her eyes red. Mom, Dad, I truly love Angelo. You can't stop me from being with him just for money. Upon hearing this foolish statement from his daughter, April's father nearly had a heart attack from anger. Meanwhile, I just watched the drama unfold, instructing the police to inform the Mu family that if they didn't return the $800,000, I would sue them for fraud. After all, they were all present when the dowry was collected. Faced with evidence and the police's warnings, the Mu family prepared to return the $800,000, but when they went to withdraw the money, they discovered that $500,000 had gone missing from the account. The Mu family instinctively wanted to pin the blame on me, but I was prepared and had provided all the transaction records as evidence. The Mu family and April thought I was a fool, but they didn't know that in my previous life, I was only manipulated by them because I loved April. In this life, I had realized, I was a businessman. A businessman focuses on profits. How could I be outsmarted by such foolish and malicious people? Under police interrogation, April finally stammered out that she had transferred all the money to Angelo for his surgery. Upon hearing that their daughter had given the dowry to someone else, Mu mother rushed forward and slapped April several times. April, you are such a loser. April was devastated. Noah, is this your revenge for your love turned to hate? But you have to understand, Angelo has liver cancer, and this surgery is very important for him. Please, otherwise, he might not survive. I couldn't help but laugh coldly at April's words. Don't moralize with me. If you really care about him, why don't you sell your Mu family house and use that money to do good? You're so easygoing about it. If you don't return that $800,000 dowry today, I'll make sure your whole family ends up in jail together. Noah, I beg you, as long as you don't pursue the surgery costs for Angelo, I promise I'll always be by your side and won't see him again. Hearing April's words made me physically nauseous. You think you deserve love turned to hate? Just as I was about to leave the police station, I was suddenly surrounded by a crowd of media. Angelo, wearing a hospital gown and looking weak, was brought in last. Seeing this scene, I had a bad feeling. Chapter 4. Mr. Noah, we heard that you chose to break off the engagement and return the dowry because your wife donated $500,000 for a childhood friend's surgery. Is that correct? Another reporter asked me. But Mr. Noah, we also heard that Mr. Angelo is in the late stages of cancer. With your wealth, why can't you save him? Exactly, Mr. Noah. As the saying goes, saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. The reporters were practically shoving microphones in my face. At that moment, Angelo knelt down in his hospital gown, looking pitiable. Mr. Noah, if you're at odds with April because she donated $500,000 to save me, I'll return that life-saving surgery fee to you. I just ask that you don't hold it against April. Otherwise, I won't rest in peace even if I die. Angelo, don't beg him. He's a small person. I only regret having seen him in the past. April's eyes were filled with hatred for me. I looked at the media and couldn't help but laugh. Yes, saving a life is great, but it depends on who you're saving. I pulled out my phone and played the video of April and Angelo together in bed. The passionate moans in the video made Angelo and April's faces turn pale. How do you have this video? Angelo was caught off guard. He thought that even if I discovered the $500,000 she had given him, he would never expect me to have this video. You're despicable. This is an invasion of privacy. I'll sue you. Angelo's instinctive threat sounded so weak in the face of absolute power. After all, crushing him now would be as easy as squashing an ant. In front of the reporters, I smiled at April and Angelo, mocking them from above. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I think Angelo, this cancer patient, isn't going to die so easily, especially since he can still sleep with someone else's wife. Right. As for the $500,000 April gave Angelo for his surgery, that's my dowry money. Since we're not getting married anymore, shouldn't she return it to me? The reporters were taken aback. They had originally thought Angelo was just a pitiful cancer patient but were shocked to learn that these childhood friends had been secretly involved. If they were in my position, they definitely wouldn't let this pair of dogs off the hook. In an instant, all eyes turned to April and Angelo, filled with disdain. That's not how it is. Seeing how unfavorable the situation was for them, April fell to her knees in tears. Noah, please listen to my explanation. You know Angelo is dying soon. I just wanted to fulfill his last wish. Sometimes I really don't understand why you insist on making things difficult for someone who is about to die. I pulled out my phone and showed her the post she had made on her private Twitter account. Smiling coldly, April, you might as well say it more explicitly. This might be your wish too. What about burying my love deep inside after this night? Do you think I'm a fool? That's not how it is. Noah, April turned pale when she saw her private account. I love you. April panicked and grabbed my arm to explain as I tried to leave. I coldly shook off her hand. Your love no longer matters to me. With that, I left the police station. April wanted to chase after me, but countless cameras were already aimed at them. Back home, my parents had heard about my situation from the news. My mother made me my favorite pear soup. It's okay. Cool off, son. You need to move on. A woman like April isn't worth it. Think of it this way. Every cloud has a silver lining. At least a woman as venomous as April is discovered early. If it were later, it would be disastrous. Mom, I couldn't help but choke up. In my previous life, I was so foolish that I lost my life for someone like April. I was the only son my parents had. I didn't know how they lived after I died in my previous life. Stop crying. Didn't Dad teach you that real men don't cry? Since the Moo family dares to play with you, Dad won't let them go either. No need for that, Dad. This time, I'll make sure the Moo family and April suffer endlessly. Thinking of the pain I suffered when I died in my last life, my eyes filled with hatred. The Moo family caused a ruckus at Angelo's house to get back the $500,000. April came to plead, still using her moral coercion on her parents and brother, but she seemed to forget that her parents and brother were not moral people. When her plea failed, April was instead slapped by her mother until her face was bruised. But no matter how much April was beaten by the Moo family, Angelo's family insisted that the money was a gift from April to their son. Chapter 5. Angelo's family claimed that the $500,000 had already been paid to the hospital, and there was no way to get it back, no matter how badly April was beaten by the Moo family. Angelo, who professed deep feelings for her, hid behind his family whenever money was mentioned, refusing to come out of the hospital. But the Moo family wasn't easily intimidated. When they saw that using April to threaten Angelo didn't work, they caused a scene at the hospital and even beat up Angelo's parents, leaving Angelo in bed unscathed. Evil people still had to deal with other evil people, with no other options. Angelo had no choice but to return the $500,000 to the Moo family. When April came to return the $800,000 to me, her eyes were filled with hatred. Noah, is this what you wanted? Destroying me makes you happy. Is this what you once called love? I sneered. April, do you even deserve to mention love? The biggest regret of my life is being blinded by what I thought was love and falling for you. Noah, I know you hate me, but if you take back that $500,000, Angelo might very well die. If something happens to Angelo, can you really live with yourself? April looked at me, heartbroken. I couldn't care less. What does it have to do with me? Angelo's illness isn't my fault. Since you insist on marrying someone so virtuous, why not go marry Buddha? You, Noah, don't regret it. Even if you beg for my forgiveness in the future, I won't forgive you. April's eyes turned red with anger as she turned to leave, but her steps slowed, as if she was waiting for me to stop her. Just go quickly, or I'll call security. My voice was icy. April ran away in tears. With no surgery funds and no suitable liver donor, Angelo's condition worsened. Meanwhile, April posted heartfelt pictures of herself by Angelo's bedside on social media every day, hoping for a miracle. But as Angelo's health declined, April's posts grew increasingly desperate. To my surprise, April had the audacity to kneel in front of my company, begging me for money to help Angelo. In front of the tech building, April bit her lip and knelt on the ground, attracting strange looks from passers-by. I never imagined she would be willing to trample her own dignity into the mud for Angelo. Seeing this, I felt even more regretful about my past life, having sacrificed both money and life for a woman so unworthy. It started to rain heavily outside. I sat in my luxury car and passed by April, pressing down the window to glance at her. She looked as if she had been struck by lightning, her face pale as she fainted on the ground. Another ploy to gain sympathy. Unfortunately, whether in my past life or this one, April was too foolish to understand. Such lowly tricks only worked on those who cared for her. And in this life, I had long ceased to care. Passers-by called an ambulance, and April was taken to the hospital. For a while, April finally gave up and stopped seeking me out. Perhaps fate had decreed that Angelo would not die yet. He found a compatible liver donor. To save Angelo, April deceived her father into selling their house to raise the surgery funds. By the time the Moo family realized what was happening, it was too late. April was naturally beaten half to death, but she still believed that once Angelo was out, he would give her the life of her dreams. and my plan for revenge began to wrap up. The Mu father and son had been obsessed with stocks for years, raking in profits thanks to my inside information. It was easy to trap them in a stock scheme that would lead to their bankruptcy. I only set up a small trap in the stock market, and the greedy Mu father and son invested all their assets into it. By the time they realized something was wrong and tried to sell their stocks, it was already too late. Angelo's liver transplant was a success. Meanwhile, the Mu family went bankrupt. In their desperate attempt to make a fortune in the stock market, the Mu father borrowed a substantial amount from loan sharks, but with their dreams of wealth shattered, he decided to marry April off to a man old enough to be her father, who had killed several wives, all for a bride price of $300,000. April was naturally unwilling. With nowhere else to turn, she ultimately came to me for help. Chapter 6. April knelt before me, trembling with fear. Noah, please save me. You're the only one who can help me now. My parents have gone crazy. If I really marry that man, I'll die. I'm still so young. I beg you. You're the only one who can help me. Please. Think of our past relationship. Just lend me some money. Okay. Hearing April's words was like listening to a joke. What about Angelo? You sold your house for him. Doesn't he care about you? Noah. You know that Angelo just finished his surgery. Noah. You have so much money. If you just give me a little, even just a little, it could help me. April looked at me with tears in her eyes. I was almost amused by April's reasoning. According to her logic, having money meant being a pushover who had to help everyone. I had the security guard throw April out, but as the guard tried to drag her away, April clung tightly to my hand. I don't believe it. Noah, can you really bear to see me marry someone else? I was wrong. Okay, please, help me one more time. Hearing April's humble pleas reminded me of the time in my past life when I was bleeding from a robbery and had put aside my dignity to beg her to look at me. But no matter how many times I called out, all I saw was April supporting Angelo, moving further away, never looking back at me. April, you deserve this. Do you understand? I coldly stepped on April's hand. Noah. April winced in pain. Does it hurt? I sneered coldly, but April didn't realize that her current suffering was just a fraction of what I had endured before dying. April, didn't you say that you and Angelo were true love? You always said I was the obstacle between you. Now that I'm gone, you can run to your true love. Noah. Why do you have to humiliate me like this? Don't blame me for not warning you. Your actions are too extreme, and you will pay the price. April's expression darkened, not relaxing at all after my words. Price? April, do you think you deserve that? I looked at her with disdain. Months passed. The people I had watching April reported back that she had married the man the Mu family arranged for her, but her married life was very unhappy. She often returned home with bruises, while the Mu family relied on their son-in-law for survival. Afraid to speak up even when they saw April seriously injured, her parents and brother sometimes scolded her for being too stubborn and for provoking the men, saying it was her fault she was getting hit. April's life was like hell, but what I didn't expect was that after the marriage, she still had ties to Angelo. They even began plotting how to kill her husband and seize his assets. I certainly wouldn't let these two get off easy. Just as April and Angelo had finalized their plan to kill her husband, I had it leaked to April's current spouse. Angelo's legs were broken, and April was nearly killed. This life of misery was my gift to April. Just as I was preparing to step back, I was surprised to find that, in her desperation, April once again aimed her schemes at me. Chapter 7. Perhaps even in rebirth, I couldn't escape the consequences. April actually hired someone to kidnap me, and the kidnapper was the same one who had tortured me in my past life. In an abandoned warehouse, I was bound to a pillar. Noah, I told you, this is all your fault. Why can't you forgive me like in my past life? I've already admitted my mistakes. April approached me, speaking softly. I couldn't help but show surprise at her words. April had also been reborn, but disregarding my astonishment, April continued talking, crying and laughing, looking truly terrifying. Noah, do you know, after you died, I regretted everything. I didn't want to harm you. I just wanted to save Angelo first and then call the police to rescue you. But things didn't go as planned, and you died. Noah. April covered her chest in despair. Do you know how heartbroken I was after you died? Regret, but you had Angelo, right? Why would you be sad? I smiled coldly. Who knew that upon hearing Angelo's name, April would suddenly fly into a rage? Don't mention him. He's just a hypocritical little man. Noah, you don't know how much I suffered after you died. Angelo didn't love me. He loved the fortune you left behind. After you died, he tricked me into marrying him, and then he changed completely, fooling around outside. Later, to take your inheritance openly, he tampered with my car, and I watched it catch fire while I was alive, burned to death inside. As she said this, April's eyes filled with hatred for Angelo. Since you regret it, why kidnap me now? I asked, puzzled. April sighed. Noah, I was reborn too late. I don't know why, but when I came back, I didn't marry you. I married someone else. He nearly beat me to death. And then I regained my memories from my past life. And that's when I guessed you were also reborn. Because you, Noah, were reborn. Everything is different this time. I want everything to go back to how it was before. At this point, April was filled with obsession. She pointed at the kidnapper and said softly, "So I want that man to kill you again. Maybe then everything can be reshuffled, and I can be reborn again." Noah. April raised her hand to stroke my face. Her eyes filled with affection and tenderness, something I once longed for but now made my skin crawl. "Don't worry, Noah. This time I'll be reborn right after we get married. I definitely won't let those leeching family members make you pay more money as a bride price for my brother. If I could do it all over again, I would only love you." Hearing April's words, I couldn't help but scoff. "You think you would love me? April, you're too conceited. Have you ever asked if I would love you? No matter how many times we start over, it's already over between us. No, as long as we can do it again, you will definitely love me." April's eyes were filled with eerie obsession. After saying this, she coldly ordered the kidnapper, "Go kill him, using your favorite method. Don't miss a single detail." Chapter 8. The kidnapper's eyes flashed with the bloodthirsty gaze I had known all too well from my past life. Though April was reluctant, she turned her head away, planning to escape the scene of my death. "Noah, don't blame me. I'm just correcting my mistakes." But her plans were destined to fail. Just as the kidnapper picked up the knife, countless police officers stormed in and surrounded them. How could this happen? April's expression was one of confusion and panic. Once the police untied me, I looked at April with indifference. "April, you don't really think your so-called plan was flawless, do you? Why are you doing this to me? Noah, you know that everything I do is because I love you." April shouted hoarsely at me. I instinctively scoffed. "Love? Admit it. April, someone like you only ever loves yourself." The police took April away. In the interrogation room, April kept repeating to the officers that she had been reborn. Her fate shouldn't be like this. The police thought she must be insane. Meanwhile, other officers discovered the bodies of Angelo and her current husband at April's home. When the police questioned her motives for the murders, April's face was a mixture of pain and madness. "They forced me. One deceived me. The other tortured me. They're all demons. They all deserve to die." April was arrested and sent to prison, but she continually demanded to see me before her death. I went. In prison, I watched April confess with indifference. April looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. Her voice choked. "Noah, why are you doing this to me? This shouldn't be the look you give me. You are the person who loves me the most in this world. But why don't you love me anymore? Do you know how happy I was when I found out I was reborn? I finally had a chance to win you back. But heaven is unfair to me. Noah, if I could be reborn before all my mistakes began, would you still forgive me?" April looked at me with eyes full of humility and pleading. "Noah, forgive me for not realizing how much I loved you until after you died. That's impossible. April, some things have already happened. No matter how much you regret them, you can't go back." I shook my head with a bitter smile. "And you should know, April, that someone like me can only love you once. When it's gone, it can never be regained. I'm sorry." My tone was extremely flat. April sat in her cell with handcuffs, tears streaming down her face. I didn't look at her again as I turned to leave. At the prison door, I tilted my head to feel the sunlight on me. In that moment, I was completely liberated, heading toward a more meaningful life.